Hi everyone, my name is Elaine, friend, and today I'll be presenting my Clowning Around, which is a children's workshop about physical comedy and clowning within the aspect of commedia dell'arte. But first, before we begin, I think it's important to go over exactly what commedia dell'arte is and where it originated from. So, according to Dr. John Berger, commedia dell'arte is a form of theater that was characterized by masked types, which began in Italy around the 16th century. An important aspect of commedia dell'arte was that it was responsible for the advent of actresses, where finally actresses were finally starting to appear on the stage, and it also included improvised performances, which means that the actors would go up with this certain scenario of what they wanted to accomplish within the scene, but the dialogue and the physicality of the actual scene was all improvised on the spot, which from a person who loves and appreciates improv, I think is a wonderful thing. In fact, originally, Commedia dell'arte was called Commedia dell'improviso, which means the comedy of the craft of improvisation. Now, also with Commedia dell'arte, it utilized a lot of stock characters or archetypes, and there were the servants, which were called zani, the masters or elders, which were usually always men, hence the Italian name the vecchi, and the lovers, which were the innamorati. And but what we're going to be focusing on today is the servants, because that's where the clowns come in. And there were two types of servants slash clowns. And one was called a Piero, which was always characterized by a very sad, forlorn type of clown slash servant. And then Harlequin, which was the happy clown and usually a mischief maker. And then for our workshop today, we're going to be focusing on the Harlequin aspect of clowning. And with this, we utilize a lot of physical comedy. So also another important aspect about my workshop is there's this fear about clowns, and it's actually called coulrophobia, according to Dr. John G. Robinson, and it is described as an intense and exaggerated fear of clowns, which this phobia has not been recognized as a valid disorder by the American Psychiatric Association, nor is it recognized by the World Health Organization as a valid disorder. But that does not mean that it's not a real pertinent thing that both children and adults feel. Honestly, I think it's from Stephen King's It, but that's a different story. And another important aspect about this workshop, besides shaking down the common misconceptions about clowns and how clowns don't have to be scary, is with this workshop we'll be working with self-confidence, because according to a study by the Psychology Association of America, bullying is one of the leading causes of depression and self-esteem issues in grade school children. There's a saying, there's nothing quite as cruel as school children, and I think we can all think back and remember being bullied at some point. Really, it's unfortunately an inescapable part of going to school. But through this workshop, I'm hoping I will be able to teach kids to take the names and the mean criticisms that kids call one another and turning it around. Because once you stop giving words power, they no longer have control over you. Now I will begin my workshop. I have to do a little turnaround here, pardon me. There we go. Okay, let's move this up a little bit. Perfect. Okay, so for my workshop today, we will begin with a warm-up, which I will exclude from this, so you got lucky this time. And to begin, think of a word, one word that you would describe yourself. Okay, I have mine. And it could be any nonsensical form of word. It could be any alliteration or anything like that. Like for me, my word is going to be fuzzy. Now, where that comes from, who knows? It's the first word that came into my mind. And to begin, to walk around the space and envision what exactly does fuzzy mean to you. And then think of the movement that fuzzy would be. And then what would be the sound that fuzzy would be? So I will begin. To me, fuzzy would be a lot of vibrations all over your whole body vibrating. And then the sound for me would be a and that to me is fuzzy. And the kids will go around and take turns of performing this. And actually, the fun thing about this is that once you walk around and find your movement and your word, you look around to see who do you think you would associate with. So like similar words and concepts. So, and then fortunately, the kids will group together, and then once we all have our groups based on similar aspects or sounds, we'll go through each group and go through the words and see what they had and see if they were all related or not. And then secondly, for the second part of the workshop, you will think of a word that your friends would describe you as. One word. And for me, not to be cliche, it's short. So if I were to think of a movement that would embody short and a sound, it would be very staccato. So I would just, and then my sound would be like da 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 da, because the movement and the sound is both short. And so through that, they will also group around and find their own their groups and stuff, and then we go through that again. Really, it's a very fun thing. And then here's where the kicker is. This is where I guess this workshop gets a little more emotional and sort of, not necessarily like a therapeutic session, but I'm hoping that the kids will experience some catharsis and hopefully it boosts their self-esteem. This is where you think of a word that a bully calls you. It can be very hurtful. And so for me, when I was in elementary school, one of the names my bullies would call me is Manatee, because I was very short and chubby, I guess. And so through this, it's important to turn that word around and to make it as ridiculous as possible, to take the hurt out of that word and to own it. So for me, mine would be a very squat style, very big arms, and then just my noise would be aquatic like, so and then the best part about that is the kids now will have to group up together to see what these words their bullies have, and to get into groups. And it's funny because a lot of times we're picked on for very similar reasons, and usually it's about physical stuff, or like maybe you talk too much, and through that kids will find unity and realize that they're not alone, that everyone gets bullied. Unfortunately, it's a cultural experience we all have. And through that, I hope the children experience a sort of comfort to know that you're not alone in this. It's awful, but we're all in this together. We get picked on for similar things, and in the end, you're going to be okay. And I think that's the most important aspect of clowning. Thank you. My name is Elaine, friend, and I hope you enjoyed this video.